The finish line is creeping up just over the horizon. After 2 days this week, after 8 days total, the grueling first leg of this journey is coming to a close, but not quietly, fervently. Only 1 day left to decide which teams in the North American League are going to playoffs and who, if anybody, is going all the way into top 2. Welcome to the last day of the NAL Stage 1 Super Week. I'm Caliber Jacob Anderson. He is longtime IGL Davide Fox Ibuchi, the North American connoisseur, Jesse J. Chick. Guys, the best news about today. When we're done with today, we're finally out of the best of ones. Best news as far as I'm concerned.
That is great news, but it's pretty bittersweet for me. I mean, I've been having a great time. I've been having a great time.
Oh, no, it's your last day. That's true.
It is. I'm not doing playoffs, but
we got the perfect way to send it off. Of course, we've got, I believe, officially the most Canadian desk of all time, with Fox and I both being Canadians and
That's
Jacob
true.
in a full-on Canadian tuxedo. So
I had to find a way to rock it, yeah.
It's good to see. It's good to see us ending out on a high note.
the two smartest analysts, too. I'd love to just add that part, too.
100%. I will agree with that, and I will face the wrath of Laxing later when he comes back on for next week. Today is a pretty important day because there are some teams who are locked in for playoffs, but nobody at this exact stage is locked in for top 2 quite yet. Standings are as follows. Oxygen and M80 might be sitting at 1 and 2 for the moment, but that absolutely could change based on not just their game later on, but what Beast Coast could do later in the day.
Yeah, and everything is still up in the air besides Sonics and Los just unfortunately not being able to qualify into the playoff spot. But they still have some intense matchups. You know, Los could pass Sonics and then be able to play in the open or close qualifier based off which one places in that last spot. So that's pretty important too.
Yeah, every team has something to play for, whether that's top 2 that they're going for the bye in the first round of playoffs, whether that means qualifying for playoffs directly, or whether that means avoiding the open qualifiers, because as you just mentioned, depending on where you finish outside of playoffs, you do get the extra bye into the LCQ. So it's an exciting day, even though we made it all the way to the end.
And there's a lot of implications, Math, we need to go over just because it will be more difficult to explain now than it will be right before the game starts, because points will be applied at different points throughout the day. But let's just go over some of the basics. First off, top 2 is being fought for. Either Oxygen or M80 will secure a spot in the top 2, but there is a possibility that Beast Coast can sneak in there, Wildcard, even LG have a legitimate shot of being top 2 and getting a bye.
Absolutely. I mean, currently M80 and Oxygen are the top 2 teams. They could stay the top 2 teams, but it's most likely that one of them will stay in the top 2, and then some other team, whether that's Beast Coast or whoever, will come in and upset and steal one of those top 2 spots away from them. So it's an exciting day. Again, lots to play for.
Yeah, every single game matters, and I'd love to see the idea that we're going to see a new look at a finalized top 4, as opposed to the normal, you know, Sonics, M80, DZ.
One of them's already knocked out. So
I know, and so which is crazy to say, and now we're going to see a new look at a North American top 4 going into the next major, hopefully.
It's one of those things where you wonder how much of a landscape change only having less than 3 weeks between SI and the start of Stage 1 can do for a region. But we'll talk about top 2 when we get to Game 2. Game 1 is important because 3 teams are fighting for 2 playoff spots. Wildcard are in that first matchup. They only need 5 rounds in their game against Darkzero, and they will secure a spot in top 6 and go play best of 3s next week.
Yeah, of course, a win would be great because that vaults them ahead in points, but even if they just get a 7-5 loss, they will have a high enough round differential that they will be 100% guaranteed safe from falling out of the playoffs. All Wildcard need today is 5 rounds to make playoffs.
What do their opponents need, though? Because Wildcard is facing DZ in game number 1, so on the flip side, what do they require?
DZ needs to get at least 7 rounds or just win by 7 rounds. If they go to overtime, they do not make it to playoffs. If they let Wildcard, I guess, beat them, they also do not make it to playoffs. So they need to win anything from 7-5, 7-4, downwards, and so forth, which when you look at both these teams, it definitely is a very close matchup. So it could end up being just that limit to the 7-5.
There is a third team that's fighting for that last playoff spot, but they don't play today. They've said their piece and they're done. That's Space Station. They got a big critical 3-point win just yesterday, but their path forward is all dependent on how that first game goes.
Yes, Space Station have exactly one possibility where they do not make playoffs. That is a Darkzero 7-5 victory. The reason that works out is if because Darkzero don't get a regulation win, then Darkzero will be below Space Station on points or tied, but losing round differential. differential, and if Darkzero win more dominantly than 7-5, then Space Station will be tied with Wildcard for points, but the round differential will go the way of SSG. So 7-5 is the only way where Space Station tie Wildcard on points, tie them on round differential, and then lose the head-to-head secondary tiebreaker.
I can tell you firsthand, as a player being in this position when the fate is not in your hands, is the most nerve-wracking experience ever.
Yeah.
You just have to sit there and pray. And of course, if there's going to be two teams that'll go to a 7-5, it'll be the two more defensive side of teams, Darkzero and Wildcard. So you're just sitting there and you know it's going to go to the last round possible. You just gotta hope it goes in Wildcard's favor if you're SSG.
Space Station are really just rooting for the single most foolproof plan, which is Wildcard win, and we don't have to worry about any of this junk. So that is what Space Station themselves are fighting for. They don't play today. They're the only team that doesn't. Schedule is as follows. Wildcard and Darkzero open us up in a more or less win and you're in situation. Game 2 is also important because M80 and Oxygen are fighting for first place in the league, but game number 3 is just as vital because Beast Coast have an opportunity to vault over everybody else and get a bye going into playoffs. It could happen for Beast Coast.
Yeah, and of course, even the fourth game, like depending on how the first 3 go, LG could be fighting for top 2, Sonics could be fighting to get back into the LCQ, so there's plenty to play for across today.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the upside. Even if Los beat Beast Coast, they could still hop over Sonics on the bottom, putting Sonics in a position where they would have to win to not get out of that last spot. Nobody wants to go through open qualifiers because it's just that much more games, that much more competition, and when you're playing against the T2 scene right now, it's very up in the air, and a lot of these teams, I hate to say it, but they haven't looked that thrilling on the bottom side of the leaderboard to give me confidence that they're going to smoke show everybody in the T2 scene.
The thing you don't want to do is single elimination best of 3 bracket against tier 2 teams in NA. That's the last thing you want to do right now.
That's scary.
You never know how it's going to go.
That's it. That's all we had to say.
That's it.
I mean, hey, the bracket speaks for itself. You don't want to go there. So for Wildcard and DZ, you better pray that you best win this game. First matchup of the day is the game that will decide which teams are actually in playoffs or not. Wildcard and DZ are both coming off wins in their last games, which puts them in this scenario now. Winner basically goes, but all Darkzero need is to win and not have it be an overtime result. That's all they need.
We'll finally get to see who steps up when the pressure's on the most. I mean, Darkzero, I think, have had a weaker stage so far. They are obviously right now lower in the standings, but they just had a ridiculous bounce-back game in their last matchup. Of course, that was 2 days ago. They didn't play yesterday. For Wildcard, it's been much more kind of back-and-forth season. They've had some wins, they've had some losses, but with the pressure on right now, with this being the most important game that either teams have played all season, now is going to be their toughest match and where the nerves really start to get to them.
Well, we did have a brief interview, right, with the guys on DZ, but here's the problem. We did it at a point where DZ weren't really doing too hot, so at the point where we talked to them, we tried to get a catch-up on exactly what in DZ wasn't going right, and this is what the IGL, Troy Canadian, had to say about it.
To try to clinch playoffs and make our way there, we're kind of trying to take almost a bit more of a loose approach to things. I think we've been putting a bit too much pressure on ourselves. We're not in the best spot right now. Haven't had the start we've obviously wanted. I mean, we just got to kind of turn our game around. I think we've had hints of where we want to be, but just not quite. It's been a bit of a struggle. As far as what we're doing well, I'd say it's kind of a game-to-game basis. I guess in our good games, we've been having good defenses. But I think just in general, like in our good rounds, I feel like our team play is really good. Best of ones also, like there's very little room for error, and obviously we're making mistakes. So at the end of the day, we know it's not the end of the world. No matter what, we can make it through this and come back from it. Me and Bo have both won SIs from open qualifiers, so you know. I'm definitely confident if we're to make the playoffs, get the best of 3s, I think it becomes a lot of a different game. You have a lot more wiggle room in terms of mistakes, and also just like getting into the flow of the match comes down to, you know, who can tough it out and figure out their problems mid-match.
Darkzero are obviously the team that just came off beating Oxygen's undefeated streak. That was the big claim to fame for them, and OXG since then have had a bit of a slide, but for DZ, not only is it good to get a win, it's also good to get a dominant win over a team that was previously undefeated. So that's a good way for them to bounce back after what's been a bit of a shaky stage so far.
Absolutely, and I'm glad they brought up in the interview Troy saying that when the games are going well, their defenses are going well. Because what's going wrong is their attacks, and it just doesn't look like the classic DZ that we're used to seeing, which is a step-by-step methodical push towards the map. They're just getting outgunned. There's a lot of situations where the trades just aren't necessarily there, but obviously it looks like they have had a good little bounce back, and I think the momentum and getting the energy back, the enjoyment back, it feels like the team up until this last week was just not playing with enough fun. They weren't really enjoying or bouncing off of each other.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that Darkzero are still sticking to their play style too. DZ have always been a very unique style of team where they like to play with Canadian, the hard support, the IGL, out on these more aggressive operators like the Solus and the Pulse who can gather this intel for the rest of the team. You know, I thought we started to kind of see that failing for Darkzero. I was worried that maybe their play style just wasn't going to cut it in this new meta with the new season, but they played it against Oxygen and it worked really, really well. They found that success. So whether that was the map that just needed to hammer it home for them or whether they just needed to get back and figure out their playstyle, Darkzero seemed to be back. It's one game, so I don't want to jump the gun on that, but Darkzero looked really, really strong in that last matchup against Oxygen.
Because of how they looked strong, we had to pinpoint one thing in particular that we thought they were doing really good, and when you beat a team 7-1, there's usually one thing that happens over and over and over again that DZ were abusing. So what were they doing really good in that Oxygen game?
They were just shutting down everything Oxygen was doing. Oxygen is known to be having the phenomenal attack side halves. They're very strong on the way that they go for their executes. But DZ had a game plan. They knew that OXG wanted to go for these gunfights, and every step of the way, DZ was slowing down and choking out the rest of OXG. In this clip, you can see that the rest of DZ, they're in a 2v4. Bolo is hiding. He's waiting for the last exact moment because he knows OXG has not have enough time to clear anything out, and they're constantly playing for this plant. We see Solus on Canadian here giving the perfect info, shutting down the defuse, and it's time and time after again that we know Darkzero is set up for these defenses because they're playing that classic style of Siege on the defensive side, focusing the executes, making attacking teams go for those opportunities and shutting them down and putting them in a terrible position.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody on Darkzero really stepped up through this game. You could tell they were working as a unit with that information flowing. One guy, obviously, above and beyond. You're seeing him a lot in these clips. I'll never skip out on an opportunity to mention him. Bolo, a perfect game, not a single death. 12-0, I believe, was his final stat line. Bouncing back after his worst career game through a 4 or 5 year long career from Bolo. Very nice to see him bouncing back and having that performance coming through to that last game. And I'm sure the fans will be hoping to see another one of those.
Everybody on Twitter was celebrating that too. Every teammate in his replies was like, hey, congratulations, you bounced back after not getting a single kill. It's good to see that their spirits can get lifted by this, because you're right. If the vibes are down on DZ, it just doesn't work for that team.
Absolutely. At Invite, that was one of the biggest things is I think Naif brought a big element of enjoyment. He had the team, a lot of players that are usually in their shell, he had them talking, making fun of each other, a lot of back and forth if you follow them on Twitter, and we've never seen that at a DZ so far.
So if they need the vibes up, I think Wildcard also need them up, because moments where we'd see Vertical down on himself in a kill cam were not moments where Wildcard were finding success, but they did that yesterday against the Sonics. 7-4 win on Bank, second time they've won Bank. I mean, we kind of forgot in the midst of just wondering whether they were going to go Oregon for a 4th or 5th time that those Bank attacks were actually pretty darn solid.
They really were, because we know Wildcard is a very consistent team in what they feel comfortable doing. They played Oregon 4 times, Bank 2 times, and Chalet 1 time. But that just goes to show that they like to stick to what they know. And when we saw the second Bank around yesterday, it was actually amazing what we saw to them in the way that they were going out of their comfort zone and attacking roamers head on with a always pinching the roamers of Sonics. And that was something that we didn't necessarily see out of Wildcard in any other game. I never saw them going out and getting those kills, besides Kansan, because Kansan, he's been having a phenomenal season so far. But you can't just leave it up all to one person, and we saw a lot of different entry styles from Wildcard with that pinch method, and I thought that was beautiful to see.
Yeah, and I think particularly when you took a look at Wildcard, the one person who maybe was having the most was Spiker. Obviously, through the game so far, Wildcard have had a lot of matches on Oregon. We've had a lot of matches on Bank, and I think with the style of way that Oregon likes to go, it can be kind of difficult to catch those roamers. The roamers have often a very short path to get back to the bomb site. They can often play very close to their other teammates, and I think Wildcard were struggling with that aspect of it, even when they had good drones, even when they had good intel. It didn't feel like they were able to close that out and find the picks. picks on a bigger map like Bank, where the roamers can be a bit more spread out. I think they really enjoyed being able to isolate those players and find them, and so that was a big key thing for me.
It felt like Spiker was taking advantage of Bank probably the most of anybody on that team yesterday in that Sonics win. So how does he compare here?
Yeah, so Spiker, I found a fun little stat for you guys. Defensive entries for Spiker have been ridiculously strong. 8 opening picks, 1 opening death on the defense. And you compare that to Pambazoo, a guy that you more traditionally think of as an entry player, 6-1 when it comes to the attack. These two players are likely to clash here today in those opening engagements. Both of them are very consistent. I will say they do, just to the playstyle, tend to find themselves in different parts of the map when they get into those opening picks. So Spiker has a lot of those opening picks inside the bomb site. He has 3 C4 opening picks when he's playing in sight. He has 3 opening picks from the freezer when he's going for swings on Oregon basements. So he's got a lot of those kind of site-focused opening picks, whereas Pambazoo's opening frags do mostly come from the roam clear. So it'll be interesting to see if Wildcard A give up many opening deaths on the roam when they're out there on the defense, or if they can kind of keep their teammates back in closer towards the site where Spiker can find more of those entries. And if they do that, I'll be looking to see how Pamba can get those opening picks during the push, and seeing what he can do to try to get that stat line up, take down Spiker, and not let him get those free picks that he's been really enjoying to get.
Those statistics really scare me, though, if you are Wildcard, because obviously it shows that they have their comfort on defense. But what we know and what we've seen from Darkzero so far is they have a really good job at isolating themselves on attack and not letting themselves get picked by defensive players. They're able to stay away, and then on defense, they're able to focus on the execute. They're not letting the fast entries that we saw Wildcard do yesterday affect them in that play. So for Wildcard, if I'm looking at the stats that you just brought up, obviously it shows to me that Spiker won't necessarily find many opening kills on his defensive side, and on DZ's defensive side, they will be just completely isolating and shutting out Wildcard.
It'll also be super curious for me what sides people start out on too. Do we get that Spiker-Pambazoo duel at the start, or do we get it in the second half? And this is different for Wildcard. They had 3 maps, like you mentioned, that they were playing so far all throughout the stage. They're adding a 4th one, and I can't remember has this core ever played Nighthaven at a tier 1 level before?
Nope. No.
Not even Old Mirage ever played Nighthaven. This will be the first time we see them.
Wow.
I want to say I've scrimmed Old Mirage on Nighthaven before when it came out, but obviously I think this is a game where Darkzero may have won or set the tides in their favor before the game even started, because if you know, Darkzero just needed to ban Oregon Bank, and obviously it puts their favor in a much higher chance.
Sure, but they're also now walking into the Dragon's Den. I mean, they don't know what Meepy's been cooking up. We
Yeah.
talked about Meepy being able to change a map and come up with new strategies in a matter of hours. He's had the whole season so far, including last season, to come up with strategies for Nighthaven Labs, which no one has seen before.
But we commend Meepy on being so good at countering the counters. But on the flip side, going into the Lions Den, how are you going to counter Darkzero when they haven't played Nighthaven this season?
True.
It makes
How
it
are you gonna
interesting
counter?
because they're really good on defense and on attack. That's the side they're not really that good on. So this is where Wildcard need to shirk those expectations and perform above station. But everyone in this league is winning on the first half alone, it feels like. Wildcard is Lacking's pick. Jesse, following suit or nah?
I don't know, man. It's tough because Darkzero's starting the defense, right? I am going to lock in... Fox, can you go first?
I'm because of Darkzero starting on defense, I'm going to go with Darkzero.
Okay. That might just be enough. Like, Fox is really learning to trust his gut this stage is the lesson he's learning. Jesse, what does your gut tell you?
I really like Wildcard yesterday. I like their roam clearing on a big map. I'm gonna go up against you. I'm gonna take Wildcard. I'm going with Gabe.
I'm not worried about you.
Ooh.
I'm trying to pass Lax. You're way behind.
I'm like 2 games behind. I'm
Is
1
it 2
game behind.
games? Yeah, it is 2 games
Yeah,
at
I'm
this
like
point.
2 games.
Oh, dude. This is getting close. The fight for this thing is getting super, super close. You locking it in? Nothing else?
It's there.
All right. Congratulations, gentlemen. Today is about to be a fun one. So, game number 1 of the last day of the Super Week is about to kick off. Remember, all Space Station don't want in this game is a 7-5 win for Darkzero. Otherwise, it's almost win and you're in. Wildcard and DZ, game 1. Let's do this thing.
Well, obviously a massive game with a lot on the line. And who'd have thought that Space Station and Darkzero would be 2 of these teams, Nicholas, fighting for the final spot in the top 6, or well, final 2, technically, depending on how this match goes. You're at the desk, break it down, and It's really going to come down to round count and which team prevails. But as much as we're going to talk about Space Station and Darkzero here, I want to take a moment to address Wildcard, because this is a team that when they were assembled, you didn't necessarily think that they'd be in a spot to contend against the beasts of NA. Darkzero and Space Station, both legacy teams. They've been here a while, and legacy players play for Wildcard. But if I ask you right now, did you think Wildcard would make it into the top 6 of the region? What would you have said?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I'm a bit of a copium kind of guy, you know? I see OGs and I think they got that experience, they got to figure it out. But top 6 is not easy because there are a bunch of good teams in the NAL. I think the biggest surprise is not whether Wildcard would be in, top 6, more how far down DC they currently are. So, yes, simple answer. I thought they'd be here.
Very good. Thank you very much. I did not expect Beast Coast and Luminosity to be where they are in the standings. I think the Wildcard roster on paper looks good, certainly, right? You've got 4 incredibly experienced players. You've got Spiker, who shows that he's hungry and is eager, even if he doesn't have that same pedigree as, maybe 2 world champions like Bosco and Rampy do, or what was it? Was it DreamHack Valencia? That rogue one way back in the day when Vertical was on the team?
Oh boy. It was a DreamHack something, that's for sure.
I'm sure, yeah,
that's a while
exactly
back.
what it was. We don't exactly keep tabs on all of those minor events, but at the time, the DreamHack events did qualify you for the next major. Spiker, obviously, the one on the outs when it comes to the experience on this team. Experience doesn't always net you those results. Sonics, in terms of individual players, is one of the most experienced teams in the league, and they are currently in 8th place of 9 teams. Not exactly the result that they wanted. You're hopeful that if your Darkzero, NJR physically shows up today, as he is presently absent.
And Bolo, just in terms of performance, right? He's had a really lowest rated game so far of his entire career, and maybe the highest ever as well, back-to-back games. So you can get Bolo who shows up and gets the job done and can single-handedly carry rounds, maybe even the entire game, or you can get Bolo who is missing in the server. So gotta work on that consistency.
Part of the reason for why we haven't started the match, I have to assume, is because NJR is there.
Yeah.
We're missing a player. Is not there. I mean, he's got the operator ban phase. He's got the operator pick phase.
I say just go and then just call the guy Ninja, we're starting right now, buddy. You better get back here. Just start the game and hope he makes it,
I mean, it's very common for gamers to start a queue and then try to run to the bathroom and beat the queue timer, especially depending on what elo you're playing in. Depending on the game, depending on the elo, you could be waiting anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes for your queues to actually pop, whether they be, Rainbow Six or any other variety of games. So he's got time.
I know what game you're thinking of, by the way. I know, I'm so dialed in on this one. I know how you go.
All right, well, due to reasons previously mentioned, we've got a break ready. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. I believe we're back.
We're so back, I think.
I believe we're back. Well, we are now in action. And, well, we're actually in the Nighthaven Labs fly-through here. And yeah, obviously a lot on the line. Do you have a particular prediction for this matchup?
Oh, I mean, the desk kind of spoke about it, and I have to agree. The map choice here, going to Nighthaven Labs, I mean, in my mind, heavily favors Darkzero, given their experience on it, and Nighthaven Labs still being relatively new to pro play. If you're a mixed team that Wildcard is, you don't just have this in the bag like Oregon or Chalet, so you really gotta have been cooking up some crazy stuff during this season while actively playing Pro League and preparing for those matches to take Darkzero here in your final match for the regular group stage. So I would say slight notes to Darkzero. Operator bans, I mean, we got a little bit of cooking going on. We got a bandit ban. Don't see that every single day. Obviously playing around the heart breach walls and making sure that those get opened up on the attacking side. And Monty has just become this like really stable operator across multiple regions now that will just get played or banned so often. And I think one of the reasons is that so many teams now have a multiplayer. And with the shield rework as well, I think a lot of players are now more like warm towards the operator. Before, you know, you couldn't run around as much and have as much fun with the Monty. You felt kind of slow and sluggish. That's not no longer the case. You can make those aggressive, like, front-forward plays that you couldn't before. So Wildcard, Monty, Bandit, Darkzero, they keep it cool and calm, collected, and very usual with Doki Benasami. That's what they always do.
Yeah, Bandit ban is only the one ban that really does stick out to me. If numbers are correct, this is the first Bandit ban of the North America League.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Aid has been banned 8 times, and in a lot of ways they do fulfill that same role, Nick, but there are differences to the application of the operators. There's differences with their kits. I don't think anybody's going to argue in a serious manner that the MP7 is worse than the AUG.
No, no chance. It's way better.
The TCSG can be brought for different reasons, though, and I would never say that the TCSG is superior to the MP7, but if you're going to play long range and you want to be able to chunk down people's HPs, then a TCSG does a good job of that. It's harder to control the recoil in the MP7. Obviously, in most ELOs, people are going to pick the MP7 that's brought with the Bandit. But also, you can't really trick the wall the same way with a Kite Electroclaw that you can with a Bandit battery. And we have seen a rise of Bandit tricking across all regions. And fun stuff to see the evolution of that operator.
And so why this run has gone the way it has, right? Because there's no Bandit, they know they can't get tricked, so Thatcher Thermite, they sprint downstairs to the bombs at wall, EMP goes out, Exothermic charge, guaranteed open. Now they go to steps 2, the roam clear, where things get a little bit more difficult. Nave gets a win kill onto vertical, so the thing is, because they've done step 1 first, they can now send Bosco into a more kind of semi-entry role. Sure, there's a hatch that might want to pop open with him later, but they can use the manpower if they have to.
Swapping map.
That's a huge pick. Goodbye, Rampy, as well. I'm a little surprised at how flat Wildcard's entry has been. Canadian's not usually one to get an opening pick, but at this point, we're not even halfway through round number 1. He finds Spiker. Wildcard have not done a single point of damage to DZ so far. This is a rough go of it for Wildcard in round 1.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the inexperience, you know, not playing the map all that often. It's just like a sloppy, slow first start. You know, some players and some teams, they have to kind of get into it. We had a small delay with one of some of the players missing the server. So if you warmed up, 20 minutes before the game and it goes 10 minutes past, you've been cold for 20, 30 minutes at this point. So that could be a factor for Wildcard. But Night Haven Lab, again, it's not like Oregon and Chalet where you know all the default takes and you feel very comfortable with the angles, the positions. It is still a relatively new map in competitive play. And for some teams and some players, they've not started playing it actively, until a couple of weeks or months ago. So I want to see how Wildcard can kind of do with the rounds to come, but this one is looking rough.
Izzet and Bosco are both players who can easily win multiple engagements and get multi-kills, so you can never really count out the team, but they have no information, they have no wherewithal. Canadian a second kill. It looked like NJR got the final kill, and round 1 goes to DZ flawlessly.
Gotta be happy if you're a DC fan. I mean, they're a team where I think Fox spoke about in the desk before the matchup, where he said when they're doing well on defense and the vibes are feeling high and they're feeling good, that's when Darkzero they shine. If their defenses aren't working, you know something's wrong, because they are that team on defense, right? They know how to play the fundamentals, how to set up those traps for the opponents to approach. And in that first round for DC, they played a very stable round. They don't attempt to trick the walls. They know there's no Bandit. That's not a win condition anymore. They play a very proactive roam. They play passive on the bomb side in case of a side rush, and just find those opening guns, or duels rather, shutting down the entries. But for Wildcard, they also made it relatively simple. They just kind of funneled through from one side of the map to the other and didn't have a lot of pressure elsewhere. It's very important on Night Haven that you utilize all those windows on the exterior of the building, the hatches that are, for example, outside that goes into the building, and of course get up so many of those exterior walls as possible, because if you don't apply pressure onto the defenders, they know exactly where you're coming from, and you can get kind of blended in through a single doorway, and that simply does not work on the attack. So they gotta spread out, they gotta get that pressure applied, and try and catch Darkzero either by surprise, or just simply have a better game plan going into that early stage of the round.
Didn't really seem like Wildcard had much going on in a positive direction for them, especially when you lose vertical early. Rampy died very shortly after. The ability to dig yourself out of a 3v5 is...
That's tough.
Well, it's tough, but I mean, the best teams in the world can do it every now and then, but it does really rely on your opponents making some missteps. Darkzero, in the position that they're in right now, have made more missteps this stage than usual. But in that round, they were good. They did not commit anything that could have been punished by Wildcard. They didn't overextend, they didn't give up map control, they didn't go hunting for kills. And frankly, while they might make some mistakes, overextending is something that DZ doesn't do all that often. There's leadership from Darkzero that will keep them at bay from doing that. Nafe and Canadian are sane and sensible players. The Wildcard are not going to get that advantage that a worse team would, a team that might be less experienced. Canadian taking some damage, but he's been pretty good so far on offense. Down goes vertical. Rampy taking some damage. Danzen running up to the Mira on rafters inside a warehouse, smashing the Mira, which means that nobody wants to swing. And once that Electric Claw is taken care of, you can open up some more of that wall. Spiker's been put into a position where he could do some damage once the wall gets opened up, but he is too valuable at this point. There is a secondary hard breacher. Thermite is active with 1 exothermic charge. Wildcard don't like this advance and instead look like they're going to reposition and go for a push in the back of the bomb site.
Yeah, they only had 1 EMP left from breaching the first wall, and they got caught by my disc. So now that garage wall towards the bomb site cannot be opened up by the summer charges of Spiker. They're forced to go elsewhere, and it's not ideal because, again, now they're lacking that pressure from multiple directions. Nave's gonna hold the aqua staircase, but he's up against 2 players from Wildcard that are gonna double up on him.
Need to ensure you're not getting flashed. Unfortunately for Nave, doesn't work out as successfully as he wanted. More flashbangs will go in. Wildcard have to be quick, but they might not even know that the Mira was in that position. Wildcard will get ever closer to this top floor bomb site. Double hard breaches side by side. Pambazoo joining Canadian with a kill so far through this round. NJR taking damage. Wildcard find their first kill of this series, and it comes with 20 seconds left in the second round. Down goes Bolo. DZ still have 4 players. Canadian, another double kill performance. Nafe somehow in a position to clean up with his melee out, and it's Bosco last alive. Finished off by Pambazoo, who gets a multi-kill of his own. Darkzero very firmly in control through 2 rounds.
You could see the idea there from Wildcard, though. It just really comes down to one singular EMP gets caught by that Wamai disc, and they have to change their entire plan. Because let's go back 2 minutes in time. They breach the exterior wall to garage, they go into garage, punch the mirror window, and they're going to rotate the Thatcher over. If the EMP, that wall with the mirror window is on in garage, they can open that up for a long line of sight and deny that safety net that is on the site itself. Then they go to Aqua/Fish, where we saw the round end. They open up that exterior wall as well, leading to the bump side. Now, no one from DC can play inside one of the 2 sites, and they have very limited player positions. But because this wall that Pembs has been forcing right now didn't get opened up, they have more comfortability in the site itself, and they don't have that catwalk presence. So, Wildcard, they had an idea in mind. We saw what the concept was gonna be, but they couldn't quite get the execute. One thing that's a little bit awkward is when you ban the Bandit and you play Thatcher Thermite, you need to really have a good EMP economy. What I mean by that is every single EMP is so valuable, because that means playing Kaid or Mute, and you only have 3 EMPs in total. If you run out, you're kind of screwed. If you place down a thermal charge on a wall and then start EMPing it, you only need a singular EMP against the Kaid. That's how the mathematics work with timing. But Wildcard spent 2 EMPs in the exterior wall and then only had 1 for garage. That 1 EMP got caught by the my disc. Very small things. Had they only spent 1 on the exterior wall, which they arguably only needed, they would have had a second go for it. So, Wildcard not going to change things too much up in the operator pick phase. They got the IQ for intel. I love that. Again, that stable, consistent way of playing the game. Works great against Canadian on the post too. And then again, Thatcher Thermite probably every single round, or at the very least, Thatcher and some primary hard breacher. And they double down with a Twitch now to ensure that if there's something that is on the wall to deny it, this time they have a second way to deal with it. And that's good, adapting to that previous mistake.
UMP is not a particularly feared weapon, but now that you've got the ACOG for Castle, that relatively consistent rate of fire, low recoil, well, it can kill very fast. And then we're seeing a lot of castle and pulse kills coming from that gun. The only two operators with the UMP. This is a decidedly unsexy weapon. And it's, according to Detroit, one of the worst guns in the game.
Oh, I love that. It is such a good clip.
I think that clip might be one of best
Yeah.
from live competition. It's crazy that it happened against Geo and Bolo as well. Bolo was the most remarkable kill on that consulate match, if people recall. When DZ beat TSM. That feels like ages ago.
Those.
These are different teams, different players. Ambazoo will swing on to Bosco. Wildcard suffering the first loss yet again, 3 rounds in a row that they've had to fight from behind. The issue, though, is that Bosco is, well, he's the main hard breach on this team on Thermite, and he's been able to live to the dying moments of the rounds so far. Vertical gets 1 kill. It's traded back as Nath picks off Rampy. Now Vertical will drop inside a warehouse. Hansen's not too far away. Nath will see him in just a second, and it's a small angle. Nath will turn his back. A 5th kill on the Kansan, and now the Super Shorty at close range. He can do some damage to Spiker, but Canadian wants another. 3 rounds in a row that Canadian has found the score sheet, and 3 rounds in a row that DZ have won.
DC's a team where if they get the opening kill on defense, they're gonna suffocate you when you're in the attacking side. Because again, you said earlier, they do not give anything up for free. They have so much discipline. The one player they lost on the catwalk rafters by a surprise to Vertical, they just all sit in their corners and they wait again for Wildcard to make the first move. And every time Wildcard, they go for a play somewhere, they get punished. And in that round in particular, it looked like a massive lack of basic intel from the drones because they're walking into the building, they're walking right by the side, they have no idea what the players from DC they're playing at. And when it comes to Darkzero, they're playing the pulse. They got a bit of intel, but more importantly, they got crossfires. No one is playing super duper isolated with nobody nearby in those crucial positions. There's always a man somewhere to take up lost space if they do lose a player. For Wildcard, I was kind of hoping a little bit more of like a direct counterplay, given the fact that Darkzero have played this map a fair bit in the past. It's really hard, of course, to just say, oh, counterplayed, right? Watch the VOD, do the counters, win the round, da-da-da. DC will change things up, of course. They're not going to play the exact same way every single round, but it does strike me as Wildcard are not looking like they have the biggest, most comfortable plan going into this, or at the very least, if they do have that plan, they're not really able to execute it in front of us right now. And I will say it again, it is difficult to attack Night Haven Lab. There are a lot of factors to keep into mind. But remember, Wildcard, they were happy to go here. They didn't ban Night Haven Lab. They knew it was going to be a possibility and a very likely one if you know Darkzero. So obviously, they were happy to go here and they had a game plan going into it. Just have yet to see it. Maybe after this tactical timeout, things will change around. They can really figure out those minor details and go again. And I think all I need to see Wildcard to like get confidence in them is a 2 full half. Then they go defense. If they can get that scoreline, I think they're going to be okay.
I mean, obviously, you're not going to be stoked with these results if you're Wildcard, but they've been in positions where they have been far behind and yet battled back. I mean, the most recent example of that would be the Luminosity game. They didn't obviously battle back, but they started to put up some rounds on the board after it was a 6-0 first half for LG. Wildcard playing spitefully after that, destroying Sonics in yesterday's match, 7-4. And while Sonics have had some issues, they'll be in action later today against Luminosity in a match that won't have as many stakes as any SQ match up to this point. But honestly, I think one of the things with Wildcard that I have to give them praise for is that even if they're not hanging tough round by round, it doesn't seem like their mental shatters, which is a bit of an impressive thing because there have been problems spoken of in the past, rumors, if you will, from some of these Wildcard players having issues with mental in the matches. So if Wildcard can kind of turn that off and some of these players cool down a bit, well, it's going to bode well for them. First round that Wildcard is able to draw first blood comes in round number 4. Kansan walks in and it's an ugly engagement, but he takes out Bolo. Bolo's died first for this DZ team a couple times. What a play by Spiker. He almost had Canadian, who's yet to die so far. 6-0 for Canadian. We got Nath at 5-0 as well. NJR hasn't died either, but he's got 0 kills. He's 0-0.
That's crazy, that triple O stat line. Oh! That's a bad gun, isn't it? As they say. Wildcard, though, they're speeding things up here. It's a much better look from them. And they're rushing down the bomb site now.
Got obviously got a good feeling right now. Hansen still searching for his first kill. The search will take a little bit longer as there's Nafe to pop up and shut him down. The early advantage that Wildcard gained has now been squandered with Nafe striking yet again on Bosco. Wildcard at Vertical and Rampy is the last two players standing. 2 kills between the two of them. Rampy's got information, but he looks the wrong way. He gets 1 kill, but DZ can safely trade this out. Puts Vertical in an unenviable position. Canadian dies for the first time. 1 player from DZ will survive. Actually, 2 will. I was going to say 1 player from DZ will survive if Vertical is incapable of getting a 2K. He's swiftly shut down, and it's 4 rounds in a row for DZ, and 4 rounds in a row where Nafe and NJR have survived.
I do think it was a better round from Wildcard, though. They were confident, they were in the building, they roam cleared, and I will kind of say a lot of that came down to individual gunfights, where if 2 fights go the other way, Wildcard, they win. And I know, like, it's an FPS game. That's always the case, right? Hit your shots, win the round. But, I mean, strategically, it was good. There was only 1 gap there from Wildcard. They didn't take full control of the roam. They wanted to go for a fast bomb site hit instead. And the issue then was Canadian went from top floor to that first primary floor and could see the bomb site from above. That kind of denied Wildcard the possibility to plant. And then that's when things kind of fell apart. Had they had a player upstairs or just like committed to that bomb site push and had like I guess more aggression in that position, maybe they could get the full bomb site control. Canadians last alive upstairs, that's a round victory more or less. But they tried to go for this simpler plan strategy with, you know, like in the roam clear. I do think though that this is the key for them. Don't be slow and sluggish around the map. Get in the building there, get into those gunfights, get those guns activated. Yeah, it can be a bit tough, it's a bit messy sometimes, but I think it's a lot better for them to try and get something going and to slowly suffocate, because again, DC will not give you anything for free. You need to fight for it. And now perhaps with this kind of speed increase, didn't goes, guys, I have a read on this one. Capkin on the doors, they go fast, they don't check it, I get 3 kills. Who doesn't like that? The Capkin in play for Canadian, no pulse this time around. Nafe also swinging at the door right now, so DC a little bit more movement and a little bit more aggressive, maybe thinking Wildcard gonna be sprinting to the building and not being precautious.
Well, it's been a rough start for Wildcard across the board, but additionally, for those players that you know can take over a game, Bosco and Kansan have yet to find a kill. Bosco plays support roles. He doesn't play high impact, high frag roles. He's mostly going to be getting exit kills. You're not anticipating him being the first person in the building. And I mean, he's playing Thermite. He should not be the first person in the building. And if Bosco is getting entry kills for Wildcard, then something is horribly wrong. The entries that you see right now have been Kansan and Vertical, and they have just a single kill between the two of them. If your offense is sputtering, then that's going to throw an awful lot of weight onto the rest of your supporting cast, those support players, those flex players. DZ has been eating Wildcard alive on the entry. Canadians actually been doing a sensational job in that regard. Come to blows with Rampy. Former teammates, a relatively easy kill for Rampy as he's 1 away from drawing into an even KD.
Canadian's been doing so well in this position, guys. You had to do it, Parker, to him. Poor man. This happens so often, I find, when we cast DC. Canadian, of course, he plays that verticality, tries to, like, you know, force Wildcard to deal with the problem, and they do that. They isolate Canadian, they know he's alone, they get the pick, but they have less time to work with right now. That's the cost. They get the lead, but now they gotta speed up here. And they still gotta deal with the bomb side, those mirror windows, but there's only 1 C4 in play now from Nafe. So in terms of raw utility and explosiveness, EC don't have that many ways to, like, problem solve this round. If Wildcard could get into the actual bomb side, a plant is very possible here.
And I mean, that's the big issue. This beachhead that's been established by Darkzero around the B bomb site is causing some issues for Wildcard, but they find an opening. There's a smoke tossed out. Vertical gets dropped. Utility being used. Hold on a second. Did Kansan just not see NJR in this position? Still there, and impact goes out. Damage being done. It's a bona fide 3v3. Kansan picked off as it's a huge nitro cell from Nafe to blow Wildcard's chances away. Bolo with the exit kill. and 5 rounds in a row belong to DZ.
Only one C4 available, but it gets you 2 kills and pretty much guarantees the round victory. And yeah, every single time there's a problem in front of Darkzero, they have the solution. They have that step ahead of Wildcard right now. DC are playing a proactive game of Rainbow Six Siege, always being ready for the step to come. Wildcard, they're being reactionary. They see, okay, Canadian downstairs, that's bad, go kill. They get the kill. No casualties suffered. It's good. They get to the bomb site, okay. Now there's a wall, I guess we breach it. Okay, now we run in, okay? But no one's holding below again. Vert, the player, was downstairs on Buck, but he died really early in the round. So there's no one watching Nave dropping downstairs. There's no one watching that possible C4 from below. And even if the C4 doesn't land, you still had a 3v3 where Wildcard, they gotta put one man away for 7 seconds to plant down that diffuser. And you had DC being very comfortable on the bomb side, outside that pillar plant position. But if DC are going up like this 5-0, having all the answers, playing multiple levels of siege, the verticality, playing all 3 floors, making it hard to attack, I worry for Wildcard. It's a very easy thing to say, but I do. DC right now, they are definitely the better team on this map. I really think that the map has a massive factor into why this is a 5-0 scoreline.
Well, as you can see on your screen, there's a tech pause. So more time for us to not just dissect what is and isn't happening in this match, but also talk about the overall storyline. Those that haven't been following that closely, there are 6 playoff spots at stake in all of the major quote-unquote regions, where you then go into a playoff bracket, which, for the record, does have a lower bracket. Does it not? No?
I don't...
We do not have a lower bracket.
I don't believe so, no. I don't believe so.
We'll have to... They have swapped up how major qualification has worked and SI qualification has worked and how many regions get certain points and stuff like that. So forgive us for not having all the information ahead of us, but the point still stands. The top 6 teams will enter into a playoff bracket where the top 3 teams qualify directly for the next major. Next major will be held in Manchester, England. Woo. Manchester Major, the Major for all of those that like to throw in their own little folksy way of saying it. One of these teams, or possibly even 2 of these teams, will qualify, as there's 3 teams remaining and 2 spots remaining. Darkzero comes in as the team on the outside looking in. Wildcard and Space Station are currently 5th and 6th in the standings. The only team that is outside of that top 6 that can qualify is DZ. Sonics are too far back. What was the scoreline? 7-5. If DZ wins 7-5, then based on the round differential, Space Station would be the team that gets knocked out, and it would be Darkzero and Wildcard who ultimately qualify.
Yeah.
Round differential is crucial here. Right now, that would be Wildcard needing to win 5 rounds. That's a tough ask when DZ just needs to win 2 more rounds to secure their spot in the top 6. Crazy thing is that in North America, Nighthaven Labs is the lowest played map, tied with Border technically, for 1 play. And there were 10 rounds played, and 9 of those were won by the defenders. So in terms of North America, this is an incredibly defender-sided map through the 2 plays we've seen so far. So Wildcard will be going to the better side in the second half. With the way that they're playing right now, how crucial do you think the sides will be? And do you think Wildcard can harness the power of a Nighthaven Labs defense to start winning rounds to get close to that 7-5 differential in hopes of making the playoffs?
Yes and no. I think they'll harness the power of defense and win some rounds. However, I don't personally think that like a 5-7 loss is possible for them unless DC, they really mess up on the attacking side. Like I said it before, I really wanted Wildcard to go like 2-4.5. Then I had faith in that like 5-7 scoreline, maybe it going to overtime or something like that. But when you're down 0-5, and I frankly don't really think DC will drop a single defense round. I expect this to be a 0-6 when it's like a clutch happens because the fundamentals are just so much better from DC and they're so much better as a team at playing Nighthaven Lab. I just don't see it. I'm happy to be proven wrong. I'm happy to like really change around the Wildcard. They come storming out the gate, so you pick up round after round after round. They shut down Darkzero. Sure. Is it realistic though? I gotta be the Mr. Negative and say, I don't think so. I'm gonna go with like 7-1 here for DC, victory-wise, as my guess.
This might be the most important match so far for Wildcard in their careers. Not the individual players, but the team as it is right now and the organization as it is right now. A lot of people might remember Wildcard more fondly when they were all the way back competing in APAC, ANZ to be specific. But they've been kicking around NA for a while now, and as you can see from the player cards, you too can equip the Wildcard player card. It looks very funny with Rampy's Thatcher. He's running the Rainbow is Magic, where it's Thatcher playing with the teddy bear. Looks very goofy, very funny. It wasn't that long ago, though, and I will play devil's advocate here. It wasn't that long ago that Wildcard went down 6-0 to LG, only to storm back, win 3 rounds in a row on the other side, and then, I mean, ultimately fall short. The issue with a 6-0 is that it happens so rarely that the likelihood of a team that got 6-0'd on one side, which means you didn't win the weak 3rd or 4th bomb sites, the likelihood of a team that was not strong enough to be able to overcome any of the bomb sites turning around and doing the same to their opponents, well, that's the bigger issue, is that it's, you know, Darkzero, or rather Nighthaven Labs, is not a 5-0 map, or at least it shouldn't be. Historically it's not, internationally it's not, maybe domestically it is. This just speaks to not only does DZ have the better side, but they're the better team across the board. It doesn't matter what side you're on. If DZ ends up being the better team, they will be able to overcome the fact that they're on the weak side of attack for at least a round or two, which then poses a big problem to Wildcard, because if you go down 6-0, you have no room for error. You drop a single round, it's over. I mean, I agree with you that I think DZ right now are very well positioned to win this game. But 7-1, I don't necessarily know. If a 7-1 could happen, I think a 7-2 is probably the most likely scoreline. It wouldn't surprise me if Wildcard on defense can pick up more than 2 rounds.
I like that. I was going to say 7-1, 7-2, but I was like, you know, I'll be a DC man today. You know, I'm a big fan right now. And also
Are they
for
still
Wildcard,
paying you?
No, unfortunately not, no. It's okay. You know, we all move on. I would say though, Wildcard, they haven't really hit their shots either. That's like why I'm thinking 7-1, because right now it's DC showing up. Look at that. What do you do?
Oh
right?
my.
Canadians downstairs, 3 beyond the vertical. They go in, they get shut down. DC again, early man advantage. Loose roam here from Canadian, looking for a flank, and Wildcard, they're struggling to progress throughout this primary floor.
It's a big bad Canadian match if I've ever seen one.
Yup.
He's at 6, 7, 8 kills, something like that. We obviously had a rehost, so we've lost the player scores, but I don't believe Nafe or NJR died in that 5th round either. Moot point, because Nafe just died at the hands of Rampy.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
tough.
Olo did just put up a flawless game. So it's possible to go all the way through and not die. Unlikely, though, that Darkzero will survive at this point without anybody dying again. Final attack for Wildcard, and we're about to hit the cut and thrust. 40 seconds left.
The most stable round so far for Wildcard. Like, they got vertical control of the bomb side, but again, all the defenders are on the exterior of it, and they find the kills again. DC are hitting their shots.
Oh my, Bolo for 2. Tanzan and Rampy removed. Bolo punished. On Aqua stairs. Spiker looks the wrong way. Canadian a second kill. This offsite play from Canadian has been under scrutiny for much of this stage, but it's working wonders in this game. Bosco gets the down on the NJR. No confirmed kill. There he goes. Might as well get your pick. And will now attempt the defuse plant with Canadian rushing in. Pambazoo not far off. Bosco not giving them the honor of getting the kill. He falls off. The timer was at 0. DZ, a perfect first half. Not great for Wildcard to go down 0-6 twice in one stage.
Certainly isn't the best position to be in, but I mean, if you are a new team, experience is very important. I mean, you gotta play it out no matter what. I mean, no matter what team you are, you should always play out, of course, never give up. But DC is a team that has so much experience, and, you know, they had this rush between the 6 invitationals as well, and they had a remarkable run, given the fact they picked up 2 new players in Nave and Bolo. And then, you know, they had a really sloppy couple of weeks here domestically in NAL. And I was thinking, man, was it honeymoon phase at Invite? Was it just like the vibes were super high? You know, they were really enjoying playing together, and now, you know, that honeymoon phase is over? I don't know. But then you get this week's Darkzero, and it's okay. We're starting to believe again, right? They figured out those small issues. We saw an interview with Canadian right before this match started, and he was like, yeah, you know, I don't want to give away too much, but we got some small kinks we're working on, and there are glimpses of the team that we want to be, and the teams that we sometimes are, but we still got to figure out some of the details, and once we get those ironed out, I believe they will be a great team again. So, I know, you know as well, Parker, Canadian's very critical of himself and the team. You know, that's how he's been to that goal for as long as he has. Building talent with new players, and Darkzero pretty seamlessly picking up players and still doing quite well domestically. Internationally, it's always a bit wonky, of course. It's a bigger issue. And it has been a great Darkzero today. I gotta say that. On the defensive side, that is easier, of course. We gotta see what they can do in attack, because if this falls apart and we get like 12 rounds straight of defense victories, it doesn't matter how good DC are, because then it's just, you know, Nighthaven, defender ratio, it's all over. They gotta be able to attack and defend before we can crown them the best team in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, we're at a point right now where this is going to be a very defender-sided Nighthaven, whether it's a quick one or a long one, because if the game goes on long, it'll be because Wildcard starts winning their defenses. They'll be in a hard spot at the start of this round. Ambazu taking care of Kansan before Spiker trades it right back. Wildcard at least get themselves out of the predicament that they were in, but no Soulless for the remaining 1 minute and 45 seconds in this round. Kansan as well has always just explosive potential as a player. Might be, dare I say it, the best player on Wildcard. Stats-wise, he has been. Without him, you might find yourself in more trouble than, well, Wildcard thought they were in at the start of this second half, staring down match point.
Nave might have either lost a kill or maybe stayed alive, depending on how the gunfight went. He went to throw a drone and he missed it and had to go off the angle on the window to pick it up again. While that happened, 3 players of Wildcard were swinging the window to escort each other back down towards the bomb side. If Nave had gotten that kill, wait a second. Oh, nice. That feels bad if you're NTR, but it feels good if you're Bosco. That is a high-value C4 right there. Pop the mirror window, makes it more difficult to reach up on the wall with your thermite. I do think though Canadian got a pre-place, if not mistaken, so they could maybe just pop it, but there might be a jammer in their way. So they gotta destroy the subfloor, find the jammer, there it is. C4 to deny? Nope, no C4 to deny.
Toss the C4 out after the fact though, but Spiker doesn't find anything. That explosive will go off. Nary a scratch done to DZ in that engagement. Now Canadian will drop. Close to the site. What a play by Spiker! Sitting in a spot all too familiar for attackers. Olo sees the shadow, can't follow up though, as Spiker will play keep away for the time being. Olo's in a troubling spot. Valkyrie cameras got eyes on him. 4 players to be found. A perfect game will not be had by Darkzero as the first defense is won by Wildcard. The point that I was saying before action broke out, by the way, was that in the one time that we saw Nighthaven Labs played previously, there were 10 rounds. All the defenders won all of those rounds except for 1. So now you look at it, DZ went 6-0 on defense. Now Wildcard have gone 1-0 on defense. Nighthaven Labs game actually was casted by us. I don't know if you remember it. It was Beast Coast versus Sonics.
Yes, I do remember
one
that.
attacking round victory. That was it.
Darkzero, I'm not gonna lie, if Spiker doesn't hit that 2K on the side, they don't have a very good way to win that round defensively speaking. They had no C4s or plant deny, no toxic babes. So if DC walk in, they take down Spiker, it's a 3v3, they can more or less just plant for absolutely free. The guy outside the breach holds the bomb site, the guy who's behind the planter has to turn around 180 degrees and watch the flank. And if DC just win 1 or 2 gunfights, they will basically win the round. So Spiker recognized, hey, we need to make a huge play here. I'm gonna stay in this really aggressive position where I might die, but I need to try and get these kills, and he hits both of them. And then, you know, that's the entire run for Wildcard. They get it done of a small clutch play. But certainly a better start on defense so far. They had that active roam, they got a trade onto Pambasu, stalling down Darkzero, taking him with the bug and the verticality. They got all they wanted. Now with the Bandit ban, it becomes a bit interesting because you can't just, you know, play Tubarao Bandit and easily trick the wall. You gotta play the Kaid Tubarao now. And it's this really intricate dance between the EMPs on attack and the Tubaraos on the defense. And it can get kind of messy. But a well-practiced team, you know, the coordination between the Tubarao and the Kaid, you can still trick the wall kind of like playing a Bandit. The thing is, though, DC, they have two options. They can go on this exterior wall on jungle, or they can go to the primary breach of CC. And, you know, if they pick the right one, that's not what the Tubarao Kaid is going to be. We see from Wildcard, though, they don't even care about that other wall. They want this one. That's the one they care about. That's where their focus is going to be, and that's what they are going to try and deny.
It's the IT wall that gets so much action in a variety of regions. You have the Tubarao there to freeze out the attackers. Bandit tricking is something that you see quite often. Wildcard banning the Bandit means that they are prepared to deal with that part of the map, not require the services of the German battery-powered operator. Instead, well, it's the waiting game. Just have to wait out these Zoto canisters.
Oh, they messed up. And the Geek is up there. So what they tried to do was Tubarao the bottom of the floor, Kaid the top, but Kansem was like just a teeny tiny bit off and didn't hit the wall with the first Tubarao canister. So therefore the wall gets opened up instead, and Canadian on top of that gets a grenade kill onto Spiker. We don't see that all that often these days.
No, not at all, especially since you can't prime those nades anymore. So they'll go in and then they blow up a couple seconds later. Teams have started banking them off of surfaces, as that will start the trigger a little bit early. Hansen lost upstairs on Catwalk. A 7-1 scoreline looks mighty likely right now, Nick. I took the position of a 7-2. Unless Wildcard can start getting kills on the board, this one is all but over. A 5v2 with 30 seconds left. Vertical and Bosco will be in for the fight of their lives in this round. Bert knows one's coming from Aqua. DZ stacks up. This could go very poorly for them, but Canadian leading the charge. And it's a flawless round from Darkzero to seal the deal on this match. 3 huge points for DZ. Up to 12 they go. And they have guaranteed themselves a shot at a major spot. They'll be in the playoffs.
And they look very good doing so. And I gotta say, Canadian, he was popping off today on the roam on defense and also on the entries on the attacking side. In that final round, he gets a grenade kill. He's the first guy leading that bomb side charge in that 5 versus 2. He's a player that many people are critical of because he dies in weird positions. Today, Canadian was here to get kills.
Yeah, he sure was. And sometimes you have to lead by example. There are times when the conversation about Canadian will change over and talk about how maybe he can't hang anymore, or maybe he's getting a little bit older, but today he showed some moments of brilliance, frankly. And because of his strong performance in the server, and undoubtedly his strong performance as an IGL to get the most out of the rest of his team, DZ have a fighting shot of making it to Manchester. It seemed almost unthinkable that DZ wouldn't be in that conversation. Well, they've ensured they've got a chance. First match in the books, but we got 3 more to go. We don't want to waste any time, so we'll be back with more of the NA League.
And just like that, playoffs are 100% confirmed. Not the bracket, but the teams participating. Wildcard had a shot to come back from a really abysmal start to the stage and almost get to playoffs, but DZ instead are the ones to save their season at the end, and they are one of the top 6 teams that will be going immediately into the best of 3 bracket for the Manchester Major. Good win from them, because it follows the same trend. If you win the first 4 rounds of the first half straight, you're probably just going to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that win for Darkzero makes it that 50% of the games so far played in the NAL that start off 4-0 or more, that team that just went 4-0 obviously just wins out. I mean, that's a pretty obvious stat.
Yeah.
No, you go up 4-0, it'd be hard to throw it.
Yeah,
but
you expect to win more often than not in that situation.
It just feels like it happens all the time now. Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, again, kind of a tale of the side. I don't think the side start changed who won. I think Darkzero would have won this game regardless if they started on defense or attack, but I do think the dominance of this matchup, the 7-1 scoreline, is a result of DZ starting on the defensive half. You know, this game, it was a sorry sight for Wildcard. Compared to how we saw them attacking yesterday, I don't think we got that same team that showed up, that was able to roam clear so effectively on Bank. It was a huge problem for Wildcard coming through into this one. You see the stats here. Darkzero's side is all red. The only thing red on Wildcard's side is the logo. It completely crumbled in this matchup.
Yeah, the entry side is the biggest thing for Darkzero, and I think they knew exactly what Wildcard was going to bring, right? We saw a lot of fast entries from Wildcard, specifically from Vertical, and Canadian was one of the main person that was shutting that down, and all of Darkzero was shutting down Wildcard's very aggressive entry. And we actually heard Pengu talk about it on the cast too, that once you lose that opening pick to Darkzero, they're just going to fall back into the site, suffocate you out, and then that's why it looks so sloppy from Wildcard. They just didn't really have a response back into these rounds.
I'm glad you mentioned Canadian, because for me, he was by far the most important player. Round after round after round, he was able to come through and get all of these picks out on the roam game. And he wasn't alone. He often had, maybe it was Nafe, maybe it was Bolo, he often had these players around him. But he was so consistent in getting these picks on the defense and not being shut down. You saw it, I believe it wasn't until, I think, round 4 when he finally got his first death. He was 6-0 at one point, maybe slowed down towards a little bit at the end, but still having huge impact in the early round. People talk a lot about Canadian, and they talk a lot about him playing the wrong roles. I see this on Reddit all the time. People are saying Canadian needs to get off the roam, play as an anchor, you old man. But this is why he does it. This is why he plays the style that he does, and it works for Darkzero. And when they're playing as a team, when he can use that information to help the rest of his teammates, and when he's hitting his shots, this is exactly the result that they need.
Jesse admits he reads Reddit. That's cringe. I'm sorry.
And it wasn't just about Canadian and if he's old or not or able to hit the shots, but we saw a lot of unique vertical play from all of Darkzero, and that was a major thing that stood out to me. Was they knew exactly where Wildcard was going to try to enter strategically, and Wildcard never had a response to deal with the vertical roam play. There was only one round where they actually dealt with Canadian, and then Wildcard proceeded to entry onto the top floor site, and somebody else was down there. It was Nafe with a C4 for a big 2K, and then that was it. That was the end of it. And so it's not that Wildcard just kind of flipped over and let it happen. They really did try to change. We saw them pick up the speed towards the end half of the game, but unfortunately for them, Darkzero was just always one step ahead. And when it came to the map, I hate to be that guy to say, you know, we talked about it in the pre-show, and as an analyst, you never want to make absolute decisions, but I really did feel that the map ban process was so far in Darkzero's favor, because if you take Oregon out the board and you take Bank out the board, what do Wildcard have? And so far, we haven't seen much yet.
A couple players certainly struggling from Wildcard. You see Vertical and Kansan, 1 kill between the two of them. I think Vertical started with back-to-back opening deaths, often falling to Canadian or Nafe, those roamers that were playing so aggressively and playing so well on the defensive half. Kansan, it felt like he was just never really able to get into a groove, not finding a single kill through this game. I liked after the TAC timeout, you know, when they started to play a little bit more for the site, when they tried to group up a little bit more to go for those executes, it felt like he just wasn't able to find those impact, wasn't able to really work in and trade with the team. So yeah, it's tough. I'm sad that we didn't get to see Wildcard coming through and putting up a closer game, but at the end of the day, that's the NAL. You got to play well to make it to playoffs, and Wildcard unfortunately just falls short today.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a combination of not just DZ playing out of their minds, but Wildcard, whatever performance they had on Bank just yesterday, did not resurrect itself at all for this matchup. In this case, though, DZ are going to playoffs. Let's get the IGL and this bad boy to talk about how they did it. Troy, congratulations on the dub, my dude. Haven't gotten the chance to talk to you yet so far all stage, so it's finally good to see you. Talk to me about Nighthaven in particular. Wildcard had the option to do Bank again or go Nighthaven. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, uh-oh. What did you think when you saw it was Labs?
I was licking my lips. So, yeah. Well, I mean, that's no secret. We like that map. We like Bank too, but we could tell like they were a good Bank team. They seemed comfortable on it from watching. I think it was probably that they were maybe a little skeptical of going to it after showing 2 VODs of the map, and we haven't showed a VOD of it this stage. So I think it might have been that, and you know, that's a fair assessment out of them. So I can't really blame them, but obviously we like Labs. So
sounds good.
We were happy with either.
Troy, in the pregame, you guys highlighted that your defenses, if they go good, that's what you guys are known for. You guys didn't get to play attack too much today. Is that something that you guys are still worried about going into playoffs, or do you think now things are flowing a lot more, you guys are having more fun, things should be looking more normal?
I think the state of the game is like, at the end of the day, like it's no secret it's hard to attack right now. It's not necessarily that solutions aren't there. Like the attack doesn't have the tools to make an attack work, but you know, there's just so many things that the defense can do to make the round annoying for you. So I think I'm not really concerned about it. I think we've just kind of taken a bit of a new approach to it. You know, kind of accepting the fact that, you know, attack is tough, and just being more confident in ourselves and being able to believe in our ability to make plays and take fights and whatever it may be to, you know, piece some rounds together.
Yeah, well, Troy, I mean, you talk about the tools that the attackers have to their disposal, and one of those tools is the Ying. Now, we didn't get to see it from you guys very much. You only played 2 attacking rounds, but it's an operator that's been banned against you guys time and time again all season long. Obviously, great out for you back at the 6th Invitational. Do you find that ban has been hurting you so far this stage? Do you find it's difficult to go for these attacks with your signature Ying taken off the board, or have you found you've been able to adapt a little bit and are starting to get a feel for how to attack without it?
I think we've obviously been trying to figure out new ways to I guess, yeah, like to get attack rounds with somewhat ease. But yeah, obviously, Ying makes things pretty easy, at least in our case, a lot of the time. So, but obviously we're aware of that. Like, you know, if you watch one of our VODs, like Pampa's getting like a 4K every round with Ying when Ying's up. So it's like, okay, like they're probably gonna pay Ying.
Right.
So it's no secret, but obviously we've dabbled in some other things. Been trying to get some teams to ban out the Monty as well. We pulled the Monty ban today, so you know, we got that going for us.
There you go.
So yeah, just mixing it up. Like I said, a lot of tools, but I think Ying's probably the easiest to use out of all of them.
Fair play.
You don't say.
Yeah, out of all of those tools, one thing that I'm going to ask is a little bit more specific to you as someone who has a career of roaming. There was this map, Wildcard didn't really seem to have a response to you roaming. So you in that position, all of these rounds, you know that you're gonna get really uncontested downstairs. You said you were licking your lips about the map, but tell me how you were feeling when you just feel so much free air, free mobility in just not being contested on the roam.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, kind of flow state, like the game just kind of comes to you. Especially, yeah, like a comfortable map, and they just kind of leave me alone, do whatever I want kind of thing. I think one round they hunted me, but even then it was like wasted a lot of time. I think a cat can trap even got someone, so yeah, I mean, can't complain, I guess.
So last question before we let you go. You're going to do a more formal post-mortem with the rest of your team about how the stage has probably gone leading into playoffs, but just as far as the best of ones are concerned, what was it like at the very beginning of the stage, and what did you say specifically to your team when you were down by a couple of games, or games aren't going your way, or it's a close game and you're not able to close it out? You managed to make playoffs. What did you specifically say to your team to make sure that their heads were still in it and managed to make playoffs at the end?
Honestly, it was just more so like a reset, a kind of blank slate of like sharing our confidence in one another, so to speak, and our belief in one another. I think I think I'm partially at fault for this, but I think I'm a very critical person. I think that's no secret to anyone that's played on my teams. But I think it affected the team to a level that we were almost like paralyzed by it, and obviously that's not something I ever wanted to happen. So I think just kind of resetting that, and I think I've even been leading by example with it, by kind of getting, I don't know, getting entry kills and all that.
Yeah.
Saying like, hey, if I'm doing this dumb shit, I don't care if you do it, kind of thing. So like, yeah, just kind of the refreshing confidence in one another, and making sure that, you know, we know we can pull rounds back, we can make plays to get ahead in rounds, all that, and yeah, just playing like we got nothing to lose, playing to win.
Well, we certainly hope that newfound confidence carries you all the way through playoffs. Troy, again, congratulations on the dub, and we will see you for best of 3 starting next week. Take care, dude.
Sounds good. Thank you. Take care.
Managed to make it work, and they are now also SSG's best friend, because what does it look like? Who's made playoffs now?
Darkzero and Space Station. Both of them have grabbed the last 2 spots inside of playoffs. That means that Wildcard are the unlucky team. We knew that one of the 3 would not be making it. I say unlucky, nothing luck about it. They didn't show up today. But they're the team who don't make it to the top 6 of the playoffs. Of the 3 teams that we didn't yet know, they will unfortunately fall and have to go through the last chance qualifier. Can still make Manchester. Can still compete. Obviously, Los and Sonics in similar boats. They can still make the major, but it's a much longer road now.
And there's some good elements to Wildcard's game. I think they just need a little bit more experience to fine-tune their play style to a little bit of every map, not just the ones that they're comfortable on.
Yep, and Wildcard are also no strangers to going through an LCQ. They're just strangers to winning it. So we'll get to the last chance qualifier. That portion of it isn't going to happen for the next couple of weeks. But for right now, we need to sort out exactly who goes where in playoffs. We have all 6 teams confirmed, but we don't know exactly where any of them are going to end up. Number 1 game right now is the first place game coming up after the break.